All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is happening in this hectic parley that is currently underway for the Ukraine war, we are joined by Professor Peter Kuznick, who is a professor of history at the American University and is joining us live on this broadcast. Now, Professor Kuznick, I want you to weigh in on this comment that was made by President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine, where he said that Europe must have its own European army. He almost indicated that Europe cannot rely on the security cover of the NATO military alliance provided by the Americans for its security. Do you think this is a suggestion that is feasible, and will the big European powers take it seriously?
I don't think it's feasible. Really, NATO is Europe's army, and Ukraine is not part of NATO, but the rest of Europe is part of NATO. I mean, there are 32 member states in NATO, and I think other than the US and Canada, they're all in Europe. So this is as close as Europe is going to have to having its own army. Now, the question is, do we want to have a more militarized world? Do we really want to spend more money on perfecting the means of killing than looking for peaceful solutions than alternatives? And I think that's the choice that Europe faces now. You have to recognize the reality on the battlefield.
Right.
Every day, Russia is gaining more and more ground inside Ukraine. And that's what Hegseth was saying. And that's the reality that people have to face. The more they delay in this negotiation, the more of Ukraine that Russia will control. And so, and with all of the people being killed and wounded, all of the economy being wasted on this, I don't want to see a more militarized Europe. I want to see a more peaceful Europe.
It's interesting that you say that Europe is a NATO's army, but Donald Trump would clearly disagree with that. He says that the United States is doing the heavy lifting for providing security cover to Europe, and he wants the European nations to step up and fend for their own security. Now, the other aspect is that what German foreign minister said, it is unacceptable that the American president can strike a deal with the Russian president over the heads of the European leaders, where for a peace deal in Ukraine, if Europe and Ukraine are not consulted, it is not going to bring lasting peace to Ukraine or to Europe. In your assessment, do you think Donald Trump will go ahead and strike a deal with Vladimir Putin without consulting Ukraine or the other European leaders?
No, I think the United States has already backed down a little bit. What we're seeing now is incompetent messaging. You're seeing Vance say one thing, Hegseth say another thing, Walz say another thing, Trump say another thing. So they have to get their message straight. This is the gang that can't shoot straight at this point. And there's no way that they're going to come to a decision between Putin and Trump that's going to exclude Zelensky and Europe. Everybody's going to be at the table in this one ultimately. But the reality is that the U.S. has been the main backer of Ukraine. And without the U.S. diplomatic as well as economic and military support, Ukraine wouldn't be in this position. And in many ways, it's a very weak position. There have been times when they could have had a negotiated settlement that would have kept those 4 provinces inside of Ukraine, as part of Ukraine. But now that ship is left, and they are faced with a situation of fait accompli that does not look good for the Ukrainians at this point.
All right, we'll have to leave that. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Kuznick, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.